Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, like the old saying goes, if it wasn't for double standards, the left wouldn't have any standards at all. The left-wing establishment media has been working overtime to spin the Doge audits as a bad thing, and now that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are floating the idea of paying a Doge dividend, aka giving back $5,000 to the American taxpayer, well, they're having a full-blown frickin' meltdown. We are reaching peak media hysteria. It's funny how that works, right? We go through 4 years of Joe Biden fiscal insanity, not irresponsibility, but fiscal insanity, continuing pandemic-level spending for 4 years straight, and not a peep from the media. Oh, it's all justified. It all makes sense even as the nation plunges into further and further debt. But now that Donald Trump just floats the idea of giving Americans their tax dollars back, in other words, cutting spending, making government more lean, and then giving some of the money that was saved back to the American people, putting it back in their pockets, now all of a sudden it's the craziest thing they've ever heard. And now all of a sudden they're concerned about inflation and the economic impacts, and of course the budget and the national debt. You cannot make this stuff up. Like I said, the constant leftist double standard. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. Let's have a conversation about it. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, take a look at this interaction that actually went a little bit off the rails here, as the CNN clown pretending to be a journalist loses his frickin' mind. He even threatens to cut Trump's spokesperson's mic off so he can just rant uninterrupted like some sort of North Korean state broadcaster. This is CNN journalism, by the way, injecting opinion and threatening to shut a voice representing the President of the United States. Take a look.
Waste, fraud, and abuse. And by the way, James, I hope that he is. I don't like the approach, but I like the fact that something's being done. There is no money in the till. We owe $36 trillion. We owe $106,000 each. So whatever the savings ought to be, it's not like President Trump's doing us a favor by giving us 20%. Everything ought to go to the debt because the Peterson people say by 2050, 50% of all revenue is going to go to satisfying interest on the debt. We should be paying the debt. Your response?
My response is this. We should be paying the debt, which is why the Doge dividend incentivizes every American to call out waste, fraud, and abuse, to lower the budget, to narrow the deficit, and to bring down the debt. Where was this emergency over the debt when we sent $350 billion to Ukraine to be wasted? Where was this emergency, Michael, on CNN when you guys were advocating $7,000 to migrants in Chicago? $7,000 a month per migrant, and now we want to spend $5,000 one time from President Trump to hardworking Americans. The migrants didn't deserve $7,000 a month. Hardworking Americans deserve a $5,000 check with President Trump's name on it. So enough with the double standard. Ukraine did not deserve $350 billion.
Okay, listen to me. Listen to me. This is Madoff-like. This is a Ponzi scheme.
No, Ukraine was a Ponzi scheme. The migrant funding was a Ponzi scheme. Hardworking Americans deserve a break.
James,
it was their money, Michael. It was their money.
James, give me a chance to speak. Theoretically, It's my program. We don't have the money, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a Ponzi.
So we didn't have the money for Ukraine, right? We didn't have the money for Ukraine. $350 billion.
I never do this. I don't want to be that guy. And do I have to silence your microphone so that I can respond to what you've said? Because there's so much fallacy in what you've just offered.
Please go ahead and refute it.
I have a very simple premise here. We're $36 trillion in debt. It's a fraud. As much as I want to see us cut waste, fraud, and abuse, it is an absolute fraud to say to the American people, because of what Musk is doing, we have $5,000 to give each of you. The only way we have $5,000 is if we're borrowing it, because we're that far in debt. I'm trying to meet you halfway, which is simply to say, what a good thing that finally we're going to look at waste, fraud, and abuse, albeit it shouldn't be in this haphazard fashion. But let's at least be honest with the American people that whatever we quote-unquote save, we already owe. Now I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then I'm going to say see you later. Go ahead.
Michael, let me say this. We're fellow Americans. We care about this issue, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to come on this program, but I got to speak truth here. At the end of the day, we've got to send the money back that is saved, just 20% of it. The other 80% goes down to paying the national debt and narrowing the deficit. To your point, yes, There has been a fraud against the American people, the Green New Scam, Ukraine, the migrant crisis. Their taxpayer dollars were sent abroad, were not sent at home, were not spent in America, not on healthcare, not on education. That ends with President Trump's leadership today. He is delivering on his promise of major government reform, Michael. The Doge dividend plan is bold, and Americans support it.
This guy's actually getting red in the frickin' face. It's unbelievable. And here he is, grandstanding, pretending that he's totally in support of cutting government waste because, of course, it's an 80-20 policy, and I think these Democrats are starting to realize that. But then in the same breath, he's turning around and saying, well, we can't give it back to the American people because we're in debt. Okay, so now you care about debt. Now all of a sudden, balancing the budget is a priority. Give me a frickin' break. Where was all this energy when Biden was running up the national debt to nearly $40 trillion? Remember that, right? When Joe Biden kept running around saying he's balancing the budget, he's cutting the national deficit, when in reality, the Congressional Budget Office, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I'm sure you guys could find it online, but I think it was something along the lines of, under Joe Biden's spending proposals, the national debt is likely to balloon to close to $40 trillion by the year 2030, or maybe it was 2035, something along those lines. When Joe Biden was doing that, when he was running his I'm cutting the deficit scam, none of these Democrat anchors said a damn thing. They didn't care about the ballooning of the debt then. No, in fact, they reported pretty consistently that Joe Biden's plans were paid for, even though I think he was running anywhere from $1 to $2+ trillion in deficit every single year. These people are a complete joke. I mean, where were they when Joe Biden was continuing pandemic-level spending and everybody was warning about inflation, not to mention the second round of stimulus checks? On top of the ridiculous spending, people warned of inflation. Yet what did the media do? They ran cover. They kept having Janet Yellen on, assuring the American people that, oh, inflation's not going to be a real risk here. It'll be transitory, a momentary little blip on the radar. And how did that play out? But now all of a sudden, these left-wing CNN anchors want to pretend as if they're the fiscally responsible ones. Give me a break. This idea of a Doge dividend thing can actually work, and I think that's probably what scares them the most. I think what really has them panicking is the idea that Donald Trump might be sending a check to the American people with his name on it, which might help increase his approval rating and favorability ratings. That's probably their biggest concern. That's probably why they're getting red in the face, more so than actual economic concerns. And you know what? Let's address the concerns. Because, I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room, the first thing that pops up to people's minds is inflation. If you send a $5,000 check to every American citizen, well then wouldn't that cause inflation? And my thought is, I think it depends on how you do it. If you do it the way the Democrats did, which was balloon the money supply, print all kinds of untold trillions amounts of dollars, and then inject it into the economy, creating artificial stimulus, expanding the money supply, well then yeah, of course you're going to have inflation. If you have 5 apples, let's say, and then you have $10, then each apple is going to be $2. But if you then print a ton of money, let's say you print an extra $10, you double the money supply, and now all of a sudden you have $20 for the 5 apples, well then each apple will be $4 each, because there's more money chasing after the same amount of goods. That's the way inflation works. But if Trump takes a different approach and actually finds efficiencies in government spending, starts balancing the budget, cutting all kinds of waste, saving all kinds of money, well then with those savings, you could actually justify putting money back into people's hands. In that case, I'd say it's less of money printing stimulus and more of a tax credit or tax refund. And that, I think, more accurately describes what's going on here. The American taxpayer has been forced to pay into a system that has systematically wasted their money on all kinds literal leftist nonsense. They've wasted your money. They've taken your taxpayer dollars and wasted it. I mean, at the very least, I'd say people are entitled to get at least a portion of that money back. And I don't think anybody's arguing that this money should come from money printing. No, it should come from money savings, actual cuts to government waste. Cut the wasteful crap, and then with the money that's saved, put it back into the hands of the people. So at the end of the day, it all depends on how the plan is implemented. And actually what immediately comes to mind is just look at the first term Trump tax cuts. Those tax cuts served a very similar purpose. Trump reduced taxes, especially corporate taxes, which put more money in the hands of people and corporations. And what did it do? It stimulated the economy. And then the most important question, did it cause inflation? No, it didn't. Anyways, I guess all this to say that there's an interesting conversation to be had here. There's a lot of different factors, a lot of nuance, but clearly for some reason the media doesn't want to have that conversation. No, now all of a sudden, after decades of not giving a crap about the deficit, not giving a crap about government spending and inflation, now all of a sudden they're so concerned. Yeah, miss me with that nonsense. My thought process is maybe chill on the Doge dividend for now, but keep finding wasteful spending, balance the budget, or maybe even get into surplus territory. And then once that first achievement has been met, then it might actually be time to talk about a Doge dividend to the most deserving and hardworking of Americans. I don't think that's bad policy. I think that's long overdue policy. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.